Welcome to another DragonLance Saga tabletop role-playing game exploration episode. It is Palast Paleswelt III. My name is Adam, and today we are exploring playing Dragonlance campaign setting in other tabletop role-playing games. Today I want to look at GURPS, specifically 4th edition. Before we get into this, I would like to take a moment, thank the DL Saga YouTube members and Patreon patrons, and invite you to consider becoming a member or patron. You can even pick up Dragonlance Media or get $10 signing up to start playing .games using my affiliate links. Also, you can pick up Dragons of Ash and Twilight, the fan fiction anthology I helped put together. And quite frankly, it is free. It's a PDF, an ebook, and an audiobook. It's great. 12 great stories. Go check it out and leave us a review when you do. All right, just visit dlsaga.com for more information on that. So let's talk about GURPS because I've played GURPS for I think like 5 years. It was during my time in the military when I was in Fort Knox, Kentucky, for a handful of months, and then after my military, I went to Arizona for college. And I played it there a bunch with some friends from the military. So I played GURPS a bunch, but it's been like over 20 years. I really don't remember, and it certainly wasn't 4th edition. I think maybe it was like second edition or something. But it's been a long time, so I don't really remember anything about it other than it can do literally anything. Like the whole premise, it's like any of those universal role-playing game systems. GURPS stands for Generic Universal Role-Playing System, and it's put together by Steve Jackson Games. They put together one of my favorite tabletop role-playing games ever in Nomine, and it's just a really solid, robust system that will do literally anything that you want to do with it. I've run urban, modern, dark fantasy campaigns in it. We've run psionics, space campaigns in it. We've run fantasy horror games in it. And it has splat books for any type of genre you would want to run. And it has rules and skills and equipment and all this stuff for any type of game you want to run. It is truly a generic universal role-playing game system. So, with that in mind, let's see if we can use it out of the box to play a little Dragonlance. And my guess is going to be, it's going to be a very simple switch over. But again, I don't remember the rules, and so I kind of want to dig in a little bit to some of the details to see if it's going to be something that's going to work for me when, not if, but when I run a Dragonlance game in GURPS. One thing that I think Steve Jackson Games really needs to work at is their website, which just is a pile of garbage, and their approach to design. It is lacking, and it needs some help. I don't know what they're doing or why they do things the way they do, but everything feels sort of cheap and put together poorly. It doesn't have a sense of refinement or identity, and that's unfortunate. Because it is a good system that, you can use to do literally anything. So GURPS stands for Generic Universal Role-Playing System. It was originally a joke, a code word describing the game while we were looking for a real name. And then years went by, and as the game developed, we never really found a better name. So now that the 4th edition is in your hands, the name is more appropriate than ever. Now, what I want to find is what makes the 4th edition different from the 3rd edition. Because what I didn't find in the Pathfinder game was some sort of explanation about why that edition exists or what makes it different. And here it is, notes on the 4th edition. So Pathfinder, you need to take a note from every other game system. So Steve Jackson Games' GURPS says, this edition represents a leap forward in more ways than just rules. As the hobby has grown, standards have become higher. You expect more from a role-playing game than you did a decade ago. It's our job to deliver. So the book is bigger. Future GURPS releases will also be large. Most will be over 200 pages, and they will be hardback. Feedback has been clear on this point. Most people want more material in each book, and they want the durability and looks of hardcover. The art is better. It's full color throughout, and it's treated as an integral part of the book, not as filler material. Many will find this the most dramatic change in the new edition. And then regular support will continue. We plan to revise one high-quality hardcover source book every month indefinitely, as I write this in April of 2004. Wow! So it's 22 years old? 4th edition is 22 years old? Oh my gosh! Are they developing a new edition? That's a long time for game. Like, usually it's like a 10-year cycle, and you have some sort of update or something. So holding this book, you might ask, what does this edition of the basic set come in 2 volumes? Why not one big book like the 3rd edition and lots of other RPGs? The answer involves a bit of history. The first 2 editions of basic set, released in 86 and 87, were box sets containing cardboard figures, combat maps, dice, and 2 rule books. Book 1 character was aimed mainly at players, while Book 2 adventuring was more of the GM's guide. This was a logical division of content for an RPG and quite common in the 80s. By the 3rd edition, gamers had come to prefer economical all-in-one rulebooks to expensive box sets. We decided to dispense with the box and release Basic Set 3rd edition as a single book. I think that's the version I played. We managed to shoehorn everything into one volume. We continued to call it the Basic Set, even though it was not a box set, so that retailers and customers would know that it was the same game. By 95, we had published over 100 titles for GURPS. However, it just wasn't feasible to keep them all in print, so it became progressively harder to find certain supplements. Meanwhile, gamers with large GURPS libraries were finding it increasingly difficult to locate specific rules. To solve these problems, we compiled the most frequently used rules for all the GURPS into 2 expansive volumes, Compendium 1, Character Creation, and Compendium 2, Combat and Campaigns. Most GURPS supplements written between 96 and 03 require one or both of the compendia. The basic rules had effectively spread to 3 books. In the process, several internal inconsistencies became evident, the almost inevitable result of growth by agglomeration. Basic Set 4th edition addresses the inconsistencies by recasting Basic Set 3rd edition and the 2 compendia as a unified system. It occupies 2 volumes, not because we think we want to make more money, but because condensing 3 books into 1 proved impossible. There was too much material. But these 2 volumes contain the best of 18 years of GURPS development, making the 4th edition comprehensive in a way that few other RPGs are. All right, so that's why. That's the justification. That's what every game needs. You have to tell us why it exists and why we should choose it. All right, so that's because it's comprehensive. There's no need to bolt on extra rules. This put the brakes on growth. It's a truly all-in-one, all you need to run any type of game. All right, I love that. All right, so let's look at some of the mini glossary. Advantage, a useful trait that gives you an edge. Attributes are your strength, dexterity, intelligence, and health. Cinematic is a style of play where the needs of the story outweigh the realism. D is short for die. Dex is an attribute. We already know that. Disadvantage, a problem that renders you less capable. So it uses advantage and disadvantage. Is that like the D&D version of it? Enhancement, extra capability added to a trait. Fatigue is resistance to exhaustion. Health, obviously, hit points. Limitation. All right, I get it. So what do we need to play? The basic set for characters. Everyone will need access to this book in order to create characters and look up character abilities. A large group will find it handy to have several copies. Basic set campaigns. The GM will need a copy of this book, which contains rules for success rolls, physical feats, combat, injury, animals. Oh, so it doesn't have combat in this. Interesting. I'm going to have to look at that. All right, so if you have some experience with role-playing games, you already find GURPS easy to pick up. But if it's your first one, whatever. Let's look at the quick start. Success rolls, we get that. Reaction rolls, we get. Damage rolls, we get. Metric conversions, that's nice. Rounding makes sense. All right, let's make a character. Let's look at this. So when you role play, blah, 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 if you want more abilities. So start with a character sheet and fill it in as you go along, keeping track of points you spend So character points are the currency of character creation. Anything that improves your ability costs points. You must spend points equal to the listed price of an ability and add that ability to your character sheet and use it in play. Everything that reduces your capability has a negative cost. And that's it. So if you start with 125 points, you buy 75 points to take minus 15 in disadvantages. You have 65 remaining. All right, we get it. GM decides how many character points the player characters and heroes start with. This depends on how capable he wants them to be and can range from under 25 as small children to 1,000 points or more godlike beings, with 100 to 200 points being typical for career adventurers. This beginning point level is sometimes referred to as the power level of the campaign. This is not the same as the stakes of the campaign. Heroes with abilities that let them overcome even the toughest opposition in optimistic fantasy might face mortal danger in dark horror scenario. Okay, so it's all point buys, which is interesting but really time consuming, I think. And it's kind of a pain in the tuchus as well. So disadvantage limit. Hold on. In theory, you can keep adding it. The purpose of disadvantage is blah, blah, blah. So what is the cap? A good rule of thumb is to hold disadvantages to 50% of the starting points. That way you don't have a bazillion starting points. Here, let me highlight this. 100 to 200 points being typical. All right. So character points in play. I mean, they're 1-for-1 points, unless it's negative. So 2 important things to know about your character are who he is and what role do you want him to play. All right. And we have the regular questions about their backstory, life history, character bonus. And you can give, for good role playing, give them perhaps 1 to 5 points. I don't know. I think too detailed backstories is actually a liability to game masters, and no backstory is a little frustrating, but you can actually build on that. Having a little bit of a backstory that's a little open-ended and vague actually is the ideal mix, in my opinion, that allows the game master to integrate without real problems, and it will build off of the story, helping the player feel really immersed into the world. So the combinations: exotic, jack of all trades, mouthpiece, sage, scout, sneak, specialist, tinkerer, and they give you a basic idea: engineer, inventor, IQ is vital, dex is useful. So you're literally just building from the ground up in everything. A warrior with strength, dex, and hit health, I mean. All right, so here's the checklist. Basic attribute and secondary characteristics. They affect everything else, so pick them first. The build and age and beauty. These sections describe in-game effects of height, weight, age, looks. And then your social background gives you this wealth and influence and friends and foes and identity. And this is kind of a character sheet. So you can see your characteristics all showing up there. Your fatigue and your hit points, of course, have current and permanent levels. And then whatever bonuses, you got little brackets next to the attributes there. Got your encumbrance information. I mean, it looks really straightforward. It's just going through everything to make sure you got your points done correctly. So a score of 10 in any attribute is free and represents a human average. In AD&D, 8 was the average. Higher scores cost points: 10 points to raise strength or health by 1 level, 20 points to raise it. So what's 1 level? 11 or 12 is above average, 13 or 14. So 1 level is a point. From 10 to 11 is a level. So 10 points to raise strength or health by 1 level, 20 points to raise dex or IQ by 1 level. Wow. That's brutal. Most characters have attributes in the 1 to 20 range. Hey, Engine Joe, how you doing? Thanks for tuning in. So strength plus or minus points per level. Give me an example. So compared to the average human, strength of 10 minus 10 times 10 equals 100. So strength 14 is about twice as strong, which is 196 points. That's a lot of points. If you're doing a 100 point or 200 point build, you're going to have really basic, and maybe that's intentional, basic level of characters. Interesting. So let's see. Dexterity is plus or minus 20. Health is 10. And then you have your secondary characteristics. How much damage you do in unarmed combat derives from your strength. Thrusting and swinging. Oh yeah, I think I wanna give this a go and see what this is like. So you can see your strength and then what the damage would be on a thrust or a swing. And you can imagine what a thrust or a swing would be, right? So a swing would be like a melee weapon swinging it to hit him. A thrust would be like a short sword or a dagger, jacking someone in the gut or something, stabbing them in the gut. Machines and fatigue. And your basic speed, your actual speed, you can adjust. Man, that is granular. This actually this seems a little challenging. Because you're going to have to not only, you can't just willy-nilly go in and start adding points. You have to like step back and look at the entirety of your character and the different skills you're going to want, and then decide, okay, well, that's going to cost me 5. So, and I'm going to want to be good at it. So I'm going to have to put like 15 here. It's going to take a whole lot of back and forth. I wonder if there's like, a digital builder anywhere. I know Steve Jackson Games, I don't think they have anything like that. They're still like, they're very basic and stripped down with their website. I mean, their whole e-commerce site is just a nightmare to navigate, especially with GURPS. Just the way that they present stuff is just a total mess. It's a hot mess. Look, you have some negatives here, right? So you got overweight, fat, and very fat with varying degrees of points. Why don't you just have overweight with very like -1 to -5 that just gives you that range? Instead of listing 3 different skill points, just have one with a variable in it so that you can know that it's plus or minus, 2 or 5 or whatever. Dwarfism for your size modifiers gives you 15 extra points. Yeah, this is a bit intimidating just with the sheer amount of stuff that you have to adjust and choose right on off the bat. And then like you've got to take notes. So you're like, okay, I started with 10, I went up to 15, that cost me X. And then when you're going into like your size or your weight or your other skills, you've got to keep your point tally so you can say, oh, you know what? I actually want some extra points here, so I'm going to take them from here and adjust everything. It's just going to be a nightmare. Hey, Vinicius. Thanks for tuning in. GURPS is good for more ground medieval combat. No superpowered characters that don't respect laws because they can't die. Oh, well, I actually really like that. I'm sure with more points on the point build, you can create those like superhero characters, but I actually like it a little more grounded personally, especially with Dragonlance. Because yeah, it's fantastical, but it's a grounded fantastical. So you got other physical features, fashion sense, odious personal habits. See, and they have a variation there. Why don't they do that for weight? Seems like a arbitrary choice. Oh, wow. So, oh man, we're just diving into different skills and things that you can choose at this point. And then you go to your wealth and influence. Wow. Yeah, I think you would have to make a character just to get a solid understanding. So tech level and starting wealth. Tech level of, let's see. I guess 4 would be where I would place Dragonlance, because clearly they're sailing around the world, but they haven't, like, the closest Industrial Revolution actions they have are gnomes, and that's scattershot at best. So I think we would be probably, in the early age of sail for Dragonlance. Definitely not with firearms. Reputation and rank. I'd definitely be using rank for like Knights of Solamnia or Wizards of High Sorcery, Holy Order of the Stars, and even using rank for like nobles, in Thorbarden, if you want to be some sort of noble, how many ranks are you going to buy to be that? In Quolonisty, how close are you going to be in nobility, And it's all up to, you're going to have to sacrifice some of your points because you only have X amount total to do it. So if you want to have that nobility, it's going to suffer. It's going to cause the character to suffer in some other aspect. I actually really like that. So you don't just end up with like the biggest, baddest character just because. Identities. All right, advantage. It's a useful trait that gives you a mental, physical, or social edge. That's fun. So potential advantages is air, Schrodinger's advantage, secret advantage, biological chi. Turning them off and on. My gosh. So here's the advantage list. And it's a lot. And it just goes and goes and goes. These are hundreds of pages of this stuff. All right. I'm going to have to go to the campaign one because I think I got a basic idea about how to build your character. You have very specific, very strong point-based builds, which I get it. I understand that. Okay. So then let's go to the next one, which is the campaigns. All right, because I want to see some rules on how to do combat and stuff. They have a solo adventure to play with the new character. You learn to construct the character and play at the same time. That's actually a really good system to include. I don't know why you wouldn't do that. I mean, even Call of Cthulhu has that, Seems like a really, really intuitive way of introducing people. All right, so let's take a look at this and see about the rules. Of course, their forums, like I post stuff in their forums and then it gets deleted. And it's all I'm doing is posting stuff about In Nomine when I was doing a bunch of In Nomine stuff. And they would just get deleted. It just drive me insane. And it's not like I was breaking a rule. They just go through and delete shit. It's absurd. All right. So, a PC's health, wealth, friends, reputation, equipment are at risk. This includes chases in combat, espionage, thievery, and similar adventure activities. Then you roll. You should not roll on utterly trivial tasks or daily work as mundane, blah, blah, blah. So you're basically just going your base skill versus the effective skill. Your base skill is your actual level in a skill as recorded on your character sheet. Your effective skill for a particular task is your base skill plus or minus any modifiers. In the lockpicking examples, base skill is 9, while the effective skill is 4, 19, and 14 in 3 different situations. So you just got to roll over it. The terms base skill and effective. Let's see, modifiers, -5 if working by touch. That makes sense. The rule 20, if you have a basic attribute over 20, treat it as a 20 for default purposes. If you have an IQ of 25, your default lockpicking is IQ -5, is 15, not 20. Interesting. So when it asks for a roll, you have some ability with the required skill in order to attempt the task. Ideally, you want points in that skill. See, this is part of what I like and I don't like about games when it comes to skills, or especially in D&D, like non-weapon proficiencies. or I guess they just call them skills now. It's that one, if you don't have the skill on your sheet, you don't think to try it. Or two, if you do have the skill on the sheet, because they're like listed all of them, you try to do everything. And so I'm constantly telling players, are you proficient in it? No, then you cannot roll it. Like in some cases, I'll allow it, but most of the time, the reason why people are proficient in it, because they want to be better at it. They've studied, they've trained. And what I don't like is someone who has not been proficient in something and they're just random rolling and they can out survive a ranger who's spent his entire life doing survival training. Like, how can you do that? This is 4th edition Injinja. So I just don't understand why either have no skills, or if you're going to show skills, only allow people to use them if they're trained in them. So in this particular case, you have to have some ability with the required skill in order to attempt the task. I like that. But then you're going to have a skill for literally everything that might come up in a game, and then hope that you have a skill listed on your sheet for that situation. And that can get really annoying. So what you do instead is constantly equivocate. Well, you don't have lockpicking, but you've got feeling safes up. Just random stuff. You try to find a skill that's close enough, and then you'll let them try it. Well, it's either there or it's not. And when you have so many skills to choose from, in which case in GURPS, you have a bazillion skills to choose from, it becomes prohibitive. And I even run into this just playing Call of Cthulhu with their universal role-playing system. They also have a massive list of skills. And it's just all based on percentages. And it's ridiculous that you can just be good at everything if you just roll right. I hate that. No matter how good I proverbially roll, I will never be able to compose a sonnet like Shakespeare or compose a symphony like Beethoven. I just don't have that capacity. So to just say that, well, if you roll well, you can do it, that's just so real. I get it. This is fantasy. I understand that. But it gets frustrating is all I'm saying. So I still don't see, are you trying to roll under or over? There are two sets of circumstances when the character wouldn't know. Detect lies, interrogation. It declares what they're going to do. The GM rolls in secret. All right. Does it say right here? Regardless of the score you're rolling against, a roll of 3 or 4 is always a success, while a 17 or 18 is always a failure. So you got to roll low. Okay. And what are you rolling? What are the dice? Hold on a second. Is it just a D20? Oh, it's 3D6. That makes sense. 3 to 18. I didn't know it was a 3D6. Was 3rd edition 3D6 too? I swear I was rolling a D20 when I was playing it like decades ago. Maybe I wasn't. I just don't remember. Huh. All right, well, what are you going to do? My memory fails me. So 3D6, I dig that. That makes sense why they went in nominate to do the 3D6 as well. And it also is logical that you want to keep, your skills manageable, but you don't have to worry about them getting to 20 because 18 is the highest you can roll. It's a much more even spread of averages between the 3 die. So you got your difficulty numbers here, plus or minus. Of course, time spent doing it. Yeah. I really need to run a game in this. Critical success, we already dealt with that. Repeated attempts. Now, here's my question. You're telling me it's 3d6, makes total logical sense. Shouldn't the book say that? Somewhere? Whenever it attends a skill, roll 3 dice to determine your outcome. Why doesn't it say roll 3d6 for the outcome? Is there ever a time when you would roll something other than a 3d6? It might be in the players. Hold on, I'm going all the way back. They mentioned dice in here at one point, and I want to find that. Because that will help me. There it is, 3 6-sided dice. So 3 dice for each player, and another set for the GM is even better. All right, there you go. That's great. That makes it easy. Boy, am I glad I got you in the chat room, Vincinius, or Vinicius. All right, so default rolls and modifiers, difficulty, blah, blah. We saw that. Critical success. So what about a contested check? Is that just whoever rolls lower? Contests, here we are. And you got margin of victory. So each competitor attempts a success roll. If one succeeds and the other fails, the winning is obvious. If both succeed, the winner is the one with the largest margin of success. If both fail, the winner is the one with the smallest margin of success. Whoa. If both fail, the winner is the one. So you're going to win as long as you don't have the smallest. Because if both succeed and if both fail, you still have a winner, whoever had the smallest margin of failure. So when they say smallest margin, if I had to get under an 18, the smallest margin would mean 17, right? Whereas if they had to get under a 10 and 11, it's still, the margin is 1, or is it just the lowest roll with that margin? Because then you're saying people that are less skilled always succeed as long as they get underneath it. And people that are more skilled would never be able to succeed because the people with less ones are always going to have the smallest margin. So I want an example here because this is a little confusing to me. I'm hoping there's an example in here. So the amount of which a winner beats the loser is often important. Success by 5 versus failure by 5 generally means more than success by 2 versus success by 1. The winner's margin of victory is the difference between his margin of success and the loser's margin of success if both succeeded. The sum of his margin of success and the loser's margin of failure if he succeeded and the loser failed. All right. It seems like they're making this much more convoluted in the explanation than it needs to be. So the attacker must succeed to win. He cannot win by having the smallest margin of failure. Okay. If he fails his roll, he loses automatically, and his subject does not need to attempt a resistance roll. The attacker must win to affect the subject. All ties go to the defender. That makes sense. If a supernatural attack offers a resistance roll and the subject is living or sapient, the attacker's effective skill cannot exceed the higher of 16 and the defender's actual resistance. So if a wizard has an effective skill of 18 with his mind reading spell, if he tries to read the mind of someone with a will of 16 or less, he rolls against 16. If his subject has a will of 17, he rolls against 17. If his target has a will of 18 or higher, he rolls 18. Okay, so you're rolling against them, not your own. Each character attempts a success roll. The length of game time an attempt takes depends on the activity. If both contestants have a score of 6 or less, a regular contest can bog down the game as both sides roll failure after failure. To keep the game moving, raise the lower score to 10 and add the same amount to the higher score. Wow. That seems you're just breaking rules to make it proceed faster, which defeats the whole purpose of having lower scores on people. So if I have a 17 and they have an 8, they have to raise it up 2, which means mine's effectively a 19. And they're just rolling against a 10. Or would I be rolling? No, you have to roll against your own for the success or failure. Right? Otherwise, you're rolling against a ridiculously low number and it makes it impossible. Even if you're effective. For a 19 versus 16, subtract 6 from each score to make it 13 versus 10. Wow. What? Regular contests can become deadlocked if both contestants have scores of 14 or more, because it can take a long time before anyone rolls a failure. To speed up the process, reduce the lower score to 10 and subtract the same amount from the higher score. Man, so you're always going to tens, either from above or below, and adjusting the higher score appropriately. All right, if each character attempts a success roll, so they're rolling against their own, if one succeeds and the other fails, the winner's obvious. If both succeed or both fail, the competitors' relative positions are unchanged and they roll again. Eventually, one character succeeds while the other fails. The length of game time, blah, blah, blah. All right. So climbing, you're rolling against your dexterity, and there's some modifiers. That's pretty straightforward. And digging. Gravity. Yeah, hiking, holding your breath, jumping. When you want to jump over something with a size modifier 3 less than yours or smaller, the GM should say, okay, you jumped over it. Man, this looks like it, because it's so big as a GM, you've got to know everything, or just have this at the fly so you can flip it open and look it up, because everything is so specific. So thrown weapons use thrown weapons skill to hit, not dex or throwing, because throwing does not allow you to throw weapons. Okay. Optional rule, extra effort in combat. Maximum effort. Sense rules, hearing, vision, taste, smell, influence, will. Oh, this is great. Fright checks. This is something I would use so much in Dragonlance. So what you got to think of is, especially if you're doing War of the Lance era, if your heroes are encountering the dragon armies for the first time, there hasn't been a unified military force in over 300 years. The Knights of Solamnia were all sort of tore up in the middle of the cataclysm, the revolt of their vassals or whatever, the land workers and just the people of Solamnia. So there was no organized anything. If you see an army of hobgoblins, ogres, men, and draconians marching slowly toward you, roll fright. You're going to shit your pants. You're going to turn and run, and it's just going to be instinctual because you're not going to want to be in that thing's way. And then if you see a dragon, roll fright. And that's literally going to make you like shit your pants or piss your pants or just run screaming. Like there's no two ways about it, because those things didn't exist for 1,000 years and you thought they were all just children's stories, and there it is breathing fire bearing down on you. Yeah, you're going to freak the hell out. So I'd be using fright a lot. All right, let's look at combat. So active characters is involved in combat, obviously. Turn sequence. It's the order of which actives. Yeah, we get that. Does not change during combat. Oh, so it's set at the start of the fight. So you're using a constant same initiative basic turn sequence. So the combatant with the highest basic speed goes first and takes his turn. The one with the next highest is, and so on. Every active character has taken a turn. 1 second has passed, and another second begins. So each of these happens in a second? Or this 1 second has passed? What? That's a really fast. Huh. If multiple NPCs are the same side of the same basic speed, the GM simply decides who goes first. Participant turn is the 1 second period that stretches from when he chooses a maneuver until his next opportunity. 1 second seems like really fast. A maneuver is an action you can take on your turn. Each turn you must choose one. Wow. Let's look at these really quick. So aim, all-out attack, all-out defense, attack, change posture, constant. All right, what's all-out versus normal? Active in defense, free action, movements. So wait a second. So you can't move and... Oh, move and attack. Okay. Let's look at move. Most maneuvers allow some form of movement. The move and attack maneuvers allow you to move quickly up to a number of yards equal to your full move score. Okay. Other maneuvers, such as all-out attack, limit you to a fraction of your move. Many maneuvers restrict movement to a step. This is like 1/10 of your move. All right. And it says on it. So aim is obvious. Move is obvious. Attack. If you're using a melee weapon or arm, your target must be within reach. If you're using ranged, it doesn't really matter, obviously. Move an all-out attack. Any foe with a ready weapon making no effort to defend against enemy attacks. If you're making one melee attack, you must specify one of the 4 options before you attack. Determined with a +4, double 2 attacks, feint, or strong. Make a single attack with a +2. Interesting. You can move up to half your move, but you can only move forward. Then you have your move attack. You got a penalty of -2. All-out defense. So if you're just doing a regular attack, you can still do some sort of defense. If you're using a ranged weapon, movement, active defense is any. Okay. So then we already know what the contested role situation is, but what about with defense? Moving through spacing, crouching. All right, here we are. First is your attack roll. If your roll is successful, the attack was a good one. Now your foe must make a defense roll to see if he can defend against your blow. If he makes this roll, he evades or stops the attack and is not hit. If he misses his defense roll, your blow struck home and you roll for damage. That is kind of frustrating. I mean, first of all, you need a defense roll just because that takes the place of like armor class in D&D. Because then you're attacking against a skill rather than a static number, which is the roll that they would have had, right? Breaking through their defense. Whereas their defense can vary of effectiveness based on situation and stuff. So I like the concept of the defense roll, but what it does is double the length of every action. And that's frustrating in a game that you're expecting to move, with a sense of purpose. And I've run these games like this. I mean, this is how In Nomine does it too, which makes total sense. So you're rolling your attack, they're rolling your defense, you're comparing the two, and then you're figuring out the resolution. They do the same thing in the universal system that Call of Cthulhu uses. They do the same. I did my own DL6 basic game system, and I have an attack roll and a defense roll as well. So it makes sense, and there's definitely some good parts of it, but it does extend combat by double because every single action has to have some sort of reaction roll to it. And even if you succeed, it doesn't mean you succeeded. And that can be frustrating for the attackers if the attackers are players. All right, well, that's nice that they have that. So does it show the different defense actions you can take? Where's there it is. An active defense roll of 3 or 4 is always successful, even if your effective defense was only 1 or 2. So dodging. It's the only attempt you can take against firearms. That makes sense. She's dodging with the splits. That's ballsy. Acrobatic dodge. Sacrificial dodge. You can defend a friend by throwing yourself in the path of an attack against him. Oh, wow. Vehicular dodge. Blocking would obviously be imposing a shield, cloak, or some large object between you. Parrying heavy weapons. Parrying unarmed. Yeah, this makes perfect logical sense. All right. It seems very straightforward and easy. I want to run like a one-shot just to test out these different TTRPGs to see which one feels best playing through, a Dragonlance one-shot. And Dragonlance has a really great, and it doesn't have to be a one-shot. It could just be an encounter. Dragonlance has a really great tool. I'm going to pull it up really quick since we're just sitting here talking about it. It's in, oh geez, now I got to look through all my damn PDFs to find it. Book of Lairs, there it is. So great little shot where you can really just pick out, oh damn it, fit width, and then go to full screen. So you can pick out by the creature, or you can pick this by, oh my gosh, by the difficulty number. If I can move this stupid thing out of the way. So where's the difficulty number one? I know I've seen it. I guess it's just at the beginning of each setting. But it basically sets up a scenario. Oh, there it is, 12. It shows you the challenge level, and it gives you information inside of it, like total party levels, 54, average of 9th level, in order to face off against this encounter. And these are just giant anemones, anemones, I should say. And then it just gives you all the information about the encounter, gives you some sort of maps set up, and then you just run it. And it's very clean, very simple. I've used this in my 5th edition games. I've used this in 2nd edition games. And it's just such a wonderful little tool to help you just add on that extra encounter. If they're deviating and you don't want to go look up a bunch of stuff, just pull out the Book of Lairs, find a monster or find a sort of level range, like total party level range, and then just go. And you can, it's just a lot of fun. Oh, this would be so much fun. Little blood imps attacking. Boarding party of blood imps. Hell yeah. Bloodsea Minotaurs, average party levels of 36. Oh, yeah. So anyway, Book of Lairs is a great way to do these sort of encounter-based or small one-shots. And using it as the springboard for trying out these different TTRPGs like GURPS for Dragonlance, I think would be perfect. And you could even, to make it easier, you could even build out characters and then just assign them pre-generated characters to the players so that they don't have to be bogged down with all the choices of setting up the character. That's already done. All they have to do is just understand the basic game system as you're running them through it. And I think that's a really great, and once they understand it, then you give them the book, let them customize their own characters and go from there. But it seems very intuitive, very stripped down and basic, very direct. You can do attacks without damage. That's awesome. Critical hits and misses. We've already covered the criticals. Yeah, super easy, super simple. I dig it. And I think it would work really, really well with Dragonlance. Of course, you can use tactical combat. Ooh. Hexes. They use hexes? Interesting. All right. So you have movement points equal to your move. Movement points were something that were used in West End games in their original Star Wars, the role-playing game. It was the advanced version of movement in combat. You had points. Turning was a point. Moving was a point. Backing up was a point. Running was a point. So you just had to keep track of it. Was a pain in the ass. It was not a good system. So I'm hoping this is better. So tactical combat uses maneuvers But some of these have additional complications in the hex grid. Several, you receive movement points equal to your move, so your move is it. So what is diagonal and stuff? Different point totals. Move 5 would give you 5 movement points to use. Yeah, so 1, 2, 3 points. It costs 1 movement point to enter each hex when moving forward. A forward move is a move into one of the 3 front hexes. Backward. Okay, yeah, that can get pretty frustrating, I think. So forward is 1 point. Posture is going to cost points. Facing changes is going to cost points. Yeah, this is very similar to Star Wars the role-playing game, and it sucked. So I will not be using that. Oh my gosh. Yeah, the tactical combat side of things can be a bit of a pain in the tuchus. I always did theater of the mind when I ran and when I played GURPS. But again, it was so long ago, I didn't remember the 3 6-sided dice aspect of it. Like, I totally don't remember that at all. Oh, yeah, elephants. Oliphant. Special combat situations. All right. So I actually do like it when they split the books. Again, it probably comes from my Advanced Dungeons and Dragons background, where the players, they get their player's book, which just tells them about player stuff. And the DM gets the DM's book, which tells them how to run the damn game. That's how I like it. In Dungeons and Dragons, modern Dungeons and Dragons, the player's handbook tells you everything, and the Dungeon Master's Guide is treasure and suggestions. And that's it. Like, what the... Why? Why not just put the treasures in the damn player's handbook and just call it a day and just have one book? Because you clearly are not trying to separate game masters from players. So why are you pretending to? It's always drove me crazy. If a dungeon master wants to learn how to run a game, do not read the Dungeon Master's Guide, because that will not tell you how to run the game. It doesn't tell you the rules of the game to run. You have to read the player's handbook to learn how to run the game. And that's stupid. That is the most ridiculous concept I've ever heard of. And yet, it's been that way in D&D for a while. So I do like this 2-book system, especially when you have a system like this that's so robust and that can literally tackle any type of game that you want to run with so many options. And then you have all the additional splat books, which give you all the extra stuffs for the like fantasy or horror or, you know, whatever, space, supers, stuff like that. Kind of cool though. Breaking a weapon, subduing a foe. Yeah, there's no way you'd be able to remember all this stuff. So you've just got to devote yourself to the system if you're going to run it. I'm sure there's like the quick rules. That must be really simple and straightforward so that you can just dive in and start playing without any real issue. All right. Well, I think I got a good solid understanding of this now. It is very much like In Nomine, and so In Nomine is clearly based on this, which makes total sense. They're both from Steve Jackson Games. This is just infinitely more robust. A lot of things already done. Yeah, exactly. I mean, everything's already set up in this. I like it. I like the concept, the simplicity of the rolls. I think it would be easier just to go to D20 system or something else than 3D6 if they're forcing you to go to 10s, you know, in order to make it more palatable, because that sort of defeats the whole purpose of having high or low if you're just going to go to 10s anyway. So I don't know. That part kind of bugs me. I understand it, but it kind of bugs me. And their movement points is a nightmare. Like, never go with movement points. It sucks. It's so time consuming and stupid. I'm sure, because that's all movement is anyway. On a battle map in D&D, you're moving by 5s. You know, in 4th edition, they did it so moving forward is 5, but if you move 2 diagonal, that's 5, then 10. So it's a total of 15 because every other diagonal, you're moving extra movement. So they accommodate that by adding 5 into it. So I get that there's always points involved with movement. It's just when you start getting in the nit and gritty of turning your face is a point, or turning around is a bunch of points, and then moving backwards, like that granular version of movement is so frustrating. And especially like teaching new players, you can just see the excitement drain from them as you're like, well, technically, if you want to turn to your right, that's going to cost 1 of your move points. And if you want to turn around and run back, that's going to cost 4. You know what I mean? Like, and they're just like, I'll just stay here and swing my sword then. I don't care. Like, this whole math thing is like way too frustrating. Let me just roll my dice and let me just see the result of that. And like, I don't want to have to deal with extra tracking. Like, players do not enjoy that granular of tracking unless they have just played the system long enough that it's second nature and they just, go through it and move quickly. In which case it won't matter, But for new players, which is what every game should be focusing on building, is new players and awareness about the game system so that they can get new players in. You should have your rule system very simple, very straightforward, and very easily digestible. The more you try to front load with convoluted explanation like Call of Cthulhu has, or with obscure rulings on points like Star Wars the Role-Playing Game and GURPS has for movement, the more you're going to turn people off from what is essentially a very streamlined basic system, but is presented in a way that's convoluted and frustrating. And that's not cool. You can't do that. You're going to lose people. But what and this is the other side of stuff that bugs me when it comes to books. Like, I'm one of those rare people that does read through a book. And it's because I want to have a full, solid understanding. But if I'm skimming it like I am right now, and I'm struggling to find places that say 3 6-sided dice because you only mentioned it in one place right here, why would you not then follow that up by saying, when you roll, you don't say you roll 3 dice, you say you roll 3d6. Because then you're reinforcing the idea everywhere, constantly. Nope, 3d6, 3d6, 3d6. For new players, that's important. Having that simplicity of repetition is important. For old players, it doesn't matter because they already know it. So, yeah, and I know their light version is free, and that's definitely going to be something that I think I'm going to end up doing on this channel, just for players, just running a free, TTRPG one-shot or encounter-based situation, just to see how it flows. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in live, if you're tuned in live, and thank you very much, Vinicius, for your help digesting this as I'm really just skimming through this. You think the last Steve Jackson game you ever played was Car Wars? I heard Car Wars is great, Buster. Thanks for tuning in, by the way. Never played it, but I heard it's a lot of fun, so I'll have to check it out. I used to play a lot of Munchkin, too, but that was way back in the day. All right. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to this episode of Tabletop Role-Playing Game Exploration, specifically with this GURPS. Would you play GURPS 4th edition with Dragonlance? You can see that it's a very simple system to pick up once you understand the rules. And then, of course, going through it, once you have your characters, it's all downhill and you're just telling the story and using the arbitration of the dice when it comes into play. Very simple, very straightforward. Would it work for you in a Dragonlance game? Let me know in the comments below. Of course, you can always email me at info@dlsaga.com as well. I would like to take a moment and invite you to subscribe to the YouTube channel, ring the bell to get notified about upcoming videos, and click the like button. It all goes to help other Dragonlance fans learn about this channel and its content. Thank you to creator patrons Aaron Hardy and D. Robert Handy, producer patron David Galindo, developer patrons Chris Androu and Sam Ruiz, and all of the YouTube members. This channel is all about celebrating the wonderful world of the Dragonlance Saga, and I hope you join in that celebration. Thank you for watching. This has been Adam with DragonLance Saga, and until next time, Slanjavar.